with Blue and Brock both on the field to receive this pull, you know, you have a combination. Nobody's Mickle and Gibson, nobody is Rasmussen and Kittredge, but these guys have been connecting for a long time. Disc is centered into the middle of the field to Carey. Carey sends it out to Gross. Gross surveying downfield. He's got Travis Carpenter in the middle, and he pops it to him. Carpenter looks to maybe load up that scuba, but instead he goes and throws a high release over the head of the defender. Comes down in the hands of Jake Fella, known as Specs. Coming across the field. Disc is in the center. Swung out with a backhand to Carpenter. Aaron Buss puts a matchup on him. We'll talk about those two in a moment. Disc is worked back to Plu. Plu sends it to his partner Brock, and he sees Carey, but ends up looking that cut off, and he cranks one deep into the end zone. Wide open underneath is Gross, but Anson Repperman is there. Repperman takes the back door, and Gross says, no, I'll take that from you, air traffic controller. He controlled the air traffic there, and the Indianapolis AlleyCats come out with a statement and a one-goal lead, 1-0. Anson Repperman is not usually a guy that you want to test deep. He was the second leading blocker defender last year in the AUDL, and it looked like he had a pretty good shot at it because he's got quite a bit of height on Gross, but Gross can get up there, and he simply timed it perfectly. He sees superior position. Let's take a look at the Thunderbirds lineup coming out here on offense. Scott Trimble, Trucks is out there, as is Patrick Earls. Young Jonathan Mast is on the field, along with Captain Mark Federico, the Birdman, Ethan Beardsley. In the hat there and the gloves is Tyler DiGirolamo, and then anchoring the line at the handler, probably going to take that first pass, is Max Thorne. The disc is centered to Thorne from Mast, surveys the field, looks what he has in front of him, doesn't like Trucks' cut, and instead he likes DiGirolamo, and this one has got a lot of air underneath it, and DiGirolamo puts on the Jets. Tyler starts off, it's a 2-pass score for the Thunderbirds. And you know, that is one of those things. Tad Whistle, when he was up here in the booth with me instead of down on the field as he is today, he said, you know, when you see Ty D cutting deep, it is really hard as a handler not to serve it up to him. And Max Thorne, of course, with deadly throws from both sides of his body, trained by his parents, Henry and Karen Thorne, to do that. He just put one out there and looked like it might have a little bit on it. We know the wind is blowing in that direction, but Max Thorne is a craftsman like his brother Alex, and he sat it up there, and Tyler didn't need the layout. He just found that extra gear that he's been missing and put the clap on the thing, and here we are all knotted up. Aaron Buss has the disc ready to pull it. Anson Repperman with him. This goes up. It's a low line drive of a pull, and it looks like it's caught by Cameron Brock. Feeds Ames. Michael Ames has the disc. Sends it to Carpenter on an in-cut. He's being marked by Buss, and then he whips a backhand up the line, giving chases Repperman and Brock, and this time, Anson Repperman gets his revenge. He says, you want to test me once? Fine, but fool me twice, shame on me. And he didn't get fooled again. Xavier Maxtad's going to pick up the disc on the back line. Referee Kramer counts it off. Aaron Buss is set up here in a horizontal stack. Looks like he starts to move across. And Nick Gelati picks it up. He's got Aaron Buss deep, but instead he decides to send a short one to Repperman. He pulls it down just in bounds, being marked by Brock. He looks back to a handler, doesn't have one, so he sends it. Oh, we got a travel call. Sends it to Aaron Buss, and Anson's going to have to lose a little yardage. You got to figure, as a guy of average height and average reach, you look at a guy like Repperman, who's about 6 feet 5 inches tall, and say, why do you have to travel to get that one off for? Specs Fella's marked up on the handler, looking downfield. We've got Buss. We got a hammer into the middle of the field. This could be trouble, and it is trouble. We get a big block from Rick Gross, and add that to his total. He's got 10. Ames picks it up. He's got Plu to his right, has Brock to his right, shuffles it back to Plu, running towards a home sideline, and then Ames gets it back, looking downfield. He has Specs. Carpenter making a hard cut. Forgive me, that's Gross. Gross secures it, and he sees Carpenter breaking up the line, and looks like there was some sort of a breakdown there on the Thunderbirds defense. Looked like the defense was maybe expecting a force away, and instead it was a force home. But whatever the case, it results in a 2-1 AlleyCats lead. You know, last week, as I mentioned, I was happy to be joined by my friend Templeton Walcott III, the talcum powder king of Monroe, Louisiana. You may know him better as Tad Whistle, and he was a healthy scratch last week. This week, we've got Big Steve McGilsky, who might come up and join us, number 32. And Tad is happy to have a shirt this week, but as Steve pointed out, we got a lot of young guys. Got guys like Kenny Fridella, number 14, figured big last week. You got guys like Jesse Evans, Josh Sung, and we got to give those guys reps too. And so that means that some of the guys you're used to seeing in the game a lot are going to sometimes be joining me up here or maybe sitting down there on the bench. And that's okay because the depth matters at the end of the season. Max Thorne breaks off a cut to the forehand side. Jonathan Mass feeds him. He's got tie D deep, and he was tempted, you can be sure, but instead he hits Fedorenko coming in. Fedorenko finds Thorne again. Popping out for a little handler cut is Jonathan, but instead Tyler catches it. Tyler threw a lot of hammers, and now he finds Tad Whistle, who shuffles it right back out to him. Tyler's got it on the far sideline, finds Whistle in the middle. Tad goes down to secure it, and now looks and throws an inside-out break. Nothing unusual about that from him. He has a Swiss Army knife of throws. He really does. And often they're ones you don't see. He finds Tyler again cutting towards the sideline, and then they reverse the first goal. Tyler to Max for the goal, and we're knotted up at 2. We were talking about Tad Whistle, and I told him, hey, buddy, talk your way out of my booth, would you? And he's out there wearing those new aqua blue Tiempos, and I have to tell you, that the first time those cleats were worn on grass, they weren't on Tad's feet, they were on mine. I showed up at pickup, made a rookie mistake, and didn't have my cleats with me. And Tad had those brand new Nikes, and he said, you know what kind of a man would I be if I had cleats and I didn't give them to a guy at pickup? And so he gave them to me. I appreciated that. But he wears them better than I do, and those throws are remarkable. You saw in both of those cases, Tad is a guy who throws with full extension, but the power that he generates from his shoulder on down, even from his elbow down, is considerable, and he's able to make throws in spots that most people just don't anticipate. Disc is sent straight up to Keenan Plew, who surveys the downfield and looks up, and he sees Gross. Gross has got Brock going deep, but instead he finds Jake Fella. In fact, there was a host of AlleyCats going deep. Fella runs it back to the line, and he looks over, and he finds, I think that would probably be Mr. Gross over there. No, I'm sorry, that's Aaron Danger Schwartz. And he picked up that name with the mixed team out in Indianapolis. Indy is 1-2 this year. They have lost a game to Madison. That one was at home, and then they lost to Minnesota, as I said in our stand-up at the beginning of the telecast. And as we said, there's a lot of bad blood between those two teams. And they won their game against Detroit, and Coach Leonard said, hey, it was a good one. We won by 10. I felt good about the way that we played. And, you know, given the way that this division has worked out, people are still playing for second. Kasper Zicki, the elder Kasper Zicki, his younger brother's in uniform tonight. That's Wally. Wally sends it down there. Tad fields it. Jonathan Mast has it at about the 25 and sends a break throw out to Fedorenko, and he walks right to it, and he has got Patrick Earls deep. John Jones giving chase, but he will not get there in time. And Patrick Earls turns around, throws it straight down. John Jones stops before it reaches his feet, and in a cloud of black turf dust, the little rubber pellets that are embedded in the Couple Stadium turf, Patrick Earls puts the Thunderbirds ahead. Both teams on serve. We haven't had a break. In fact, don't think we've had a turnover so far, and that will probably change. These teams are both accustomed to playing defense, and we'll certainly expect to see some of them laying out for blocks and skying for blocks. I take it back. I guess we did have one turnover, and that was Anson's turnover. I think that one was to hold serve. So looking back at what the AlleyCats are going to offer, we see Carpenter back there. We see Brock going downfield with Fella. Settling in underneath the short but high pull is Keenan Plew. And a big layout bid, like I said. And this one comes up to Brock in the middle of the field. He is being marked by Gelati, and Brock shoots a rifle across the field. And it looks like Anson Repperman picks up block number 2. And now who's going to pick up the disc on defense but Peggy and Joe Hammond's boy, Patrick Hammonds. He brings it up, marked by Plew, flanked by Maxstat and Fridella, and doesn't even look at those two guys. He just cranks it deep to Gelati. Gelati being covered by Brock. Brock gets it once. Brock gets it twice. Gelati had a chance to get the rebound there, but Brock made sure. A little bit of a height advantage, but it doesn't mean much. Even with the experienced legs, Brock can get up there. Travis Carpenter in the end zone swings it out to Keenan Plew. Plew looking, does not like what he sees on the in cut. And here goes Gross deep, and Repperman lagging behind him. And we have a call. Looks like there was contact. And so Carpenter will put him in play. Throws an inside out up to Gross. Isaac Smith defending Carey downfield. Joey Carey cuts in. He is looked off. We've got Fella downfield. Brock breaking deep. This one sent out to Plew. Plew throws it over to our side of the field where Specs Fella is what they call him. Finds Plew again, and he looks upfield to see what he's got. He's got an in cut there from Ames. And Ames has breaking out into space and towing it in nicely. Schwartz. Aaron Danger Schwartz. This is another goal. The AlleyCats pull ahead 4-3. Trucks Trimble back out there. A Hampton product, homegrown. See a lot of Pittsburgh guys out on that lineup, of course. Ethan Beardsley, the Birdman, is there. Obviously a Pitt product. Tyler DiGirolamo. Jonathan Mast will be there for the Thunderbirds. Tad Whistle, Pride of Edinburgh, Max Thorne. Meanwhile, countering for the AlleyCats, John Jones is out there. See who's accompanying him. And those numbers are little. It's hard for my old eyes to see them, but we'll have the calls for you when they count. Nice high pull, settling down to Tad Whistle. He's going to catch it at the 20, backhand sideline, and he shuffles it out to Jonathan Mast. He's got Tyler behind a zone here with a three-man cup, and we've got Levi Jacobs in the middle, John Jones flanking him on the home sideline. Now it's in Max's hands. Max could go across the field to Fedorenko, but instead he gives it back to Tad. Those two play catch a little bit, and then this one is laced out over there to Fedorenko, and he finds Jonathan. The handler's just playing catch right now. Looks like they have broken out of this, and he sends an inside-out forehand. So perfect and so pretty to his friend, and yours and mine, Tyler DiGirolamo, to knot this thing up at 4. And, the handlers just effectively played catch there on this windless evening, and that's certainly what it feels like down on the field for these throwers. And eventually they found Max Thorne in the power position, looked up and liked what he saw. And I did not see who was on the defense there. It didn't really matter because of the perfect placement of the throw. And that is a combination that has never been healthy and on the roster all season long for the Thunderbirds. And it's going to be exciting to see what they can do. They're conferring with each other, and they got to like what they see. Meanwhile, speaking of young folks making an impact, we've got our disc runners on the sideline in matching orange shirts. We're going to get some more information about them, you can be sure, but they look energetic, so the disc will stay in play. The disc in his hands is Joey Carey. And Jordan Robar double teams him briefly, then goes to get Keenan Plew, and that stall's got to be getting up there. Must have gotten off just barely, and then Schwartz fakes a big backhand and instead just slings it up to Carpenter. He winds up again being marked really hard by Heffron, and looks like Pat Hammond's on the mark there. Now it's in the hands of Brock. Brock looking, throws it across the field, and he's got Fella on the far sideline, manages to keep it in. Here comes Kenny Fردella. Try to put the mark on him. Carpenter cutting in, disc right on that 50 mark, and now it's in the hands of Schwartz. Schwartz has got Brock in the middle. Patient work from the AlleyCats, and then a floater from Brock to Plew, or Plew to Brock, or Brock to Plew. You're going to hear it more than once tonight, at least I think you will, and once again on serve. This has not been a defensive struggle, and hoping to keep it that way is this offensive team of Fedorenko, Beardsley, Whistle, Thorne, DiGirolamo, Trimble, and that last Thunderbird on the line might be John Mast. Hard for me to see from right here. We'll get you that call in a moment. Good to see, I think, the first of Colin Ringwood tonight. Colin Ringwood is defensive handler, player for Brickyard, last year player for Liquid Hustle, and also out there for the AlleyCats is Zach Zebarth. Levi Jacobs on the field for defense, and here comes the pull. It is a nice one. It is a high one, driving Patrick Earls all the way back to his goal line. He sends it to Max Thorne. Operating downfield is DiGirolamo. You got to figure that he's going to be an attractive target. He's going to draw a lot of attention. We've got that loose zone again, and it's really hard to imagine how that's going to be effective unless it can tempt the Thunderbirds into foolish throws, because with the skill of these handlers and the conditions here, it's really hard to imagine that the zone is going to contain them, but it has allowed them 0 yards so far. So if the Thunderbirds can maintain patience and continue to pick away at this, there's a double team over there being applied by the AlleyCats. It's number 10, Will Kasperzicki. Loskar in that mix over there. And then playing behind it is Levi Jacobs. Now it's in the hands of Trucks Trimble on the sideline. Tries to move it very quickly, and he does, back to Tad Whistle. Tad fakes that scooper, steps out, throws a backhand. Fedorenko open all the way over here, and Colin Ringwood was looking and sort of saying, you know, please, oh, please, oh, please. Here at the back of the zone is Mike Kabira. No action for him so far, and then playing deep in the zone. You've got number 99, and that is Alex Hamilton. Oh, Trimble has a little trouble with it, and then, for good measure, bobbles it, but Max Thorne contains it, gets it up to Tyler DiGirolamo, and they're past midfield. DiGirolamo looking, slings out a forehand. He's got the Birdman. Can bet this one's going backwards, sure enough, to Tad Whistle. Tad's got it, and he's got a big field, which is what he likes. He wants it to go to the break, but it doesn't need to, because Tyler DiGirolamo, and I think that might be number 3 for Ty tonight, he leaps into the end zone with that trailing right hand and those friction gloves. Thunderbirds gloves, you can buy them on the Thunderbirds website. Don't know if you're going to be able to use them quite as well as Ty D, who reached back, said, I'll take that with me into the end zone, and before you know it, it's tied up at 5. If you are playing in a rec league or pickup with Tad Whistle, and he is over there being forced to the trap sideline, and you don't stack it up right in front of him and have a breakout cut to that far side of the field, you're going to get a talking to. But here in the pros, he doesn't necessarily need to do that, because he's got receivers like Ty DiGirolamo who can simply get open on a strike cut, and that's what he did. And Tad had the easy throw. Here comes the pull from the Thunderbirds. Settling down underneath it is Plew. Looking up, he's got Ames. Ames had a big game last year in Pittsburgh. He's double-teamed immediately, and he finds the open man, and that open man is Gross. Gross looking downfield, now looking upfield, and a nice, nifty little handler cut to get you going downfield, and then immediately the mark is put on him by Robarge. And a bid on that one by Repperman, and unmarked Brock had a look for a backhand, but decided the better of it. Instead, sent it back for 0 yards, but a reposition to Ames. Ames slings one over the shoulder to Carpenter. Carpenter, another high release, and this one does not find its target. Instead, it finds Aaron Buss. Playing catch. Oh, Buss unleashes one deep to Heffron. Heffron's got Carpenter on him. He might have another shot, and unfortunately, there's contact, and it looks like it might be a call, because in the back of the end zone there, had he been able to maintain his feet, he would have had a shot at the disc. And it looks like Heim is going to give him the disc on the goal line. Now, if I'm Carpenter, I might say, hey, man, our feet just got tangled up. Don't see a lot of arguing from the AlleyCats, and I think it's pretty clear that given how much air went underneath that deflection on that throw from Aaron Buss, that it could have been caught. But feet got tangled up, and they got tangled up from behind, which means it's a foul, and I think a good call. Now, in the AUDL, that foul comes in right in the middle of the field on the goal line, and so the Thunderbirds here in a position to break, and that's big. And let's see the lineup that they send out there to do it. I am not entirely sure who it was who got fouled there. We've got the huddle, and they're talking. I'm trying to see who's in that huddle. But right now we're going to direct our attention to the field where the Thunderbirds are in a vertical stack. It looks like Max Thorne is going to pick up the disc. He is going to have Jonathan Mast as a sidecar to his right. Tyler DiGirolamo will be at the front of the stack. Behind him, perhaps Patrick Earls. Tad Whistle in the stack there as well. Scott Trimble at the back. And Ethan Beardsley. So a lot of able handlers on the field. Looks like Levi Jacobs is going to pick up the mark. Kasperzicki, I thought, no, Levi Jacobs takes Ty DiGirolamo. The mark. Looks like Wally Kasperzicki. And the disc is about to be put into play. They wait on the whistle. These guys can. And they say that the throw went off before the whistle, after the whistle, so it's a legal throw, and it's an easy break from Max Thorne to Tyler DiGirolamo. And at this point, if you're the AlleyCats, you got to be thinking, maybe what we do is just put everybody on tie D. Get 3 guys on him and make him score with somebody else. You know, the block on the last play went to Aaron Buss, but eventually it found its way into the hands of one of the Thunderbirds' newer players, and that's Jack Heffron. We're going to talk more about Jack Heffron, but this guy has only been playing Ultimate for 3 years now. Comes to the Thunderbirds from Notre Dame a few years ago, and said he started playing his senior year, and he's a young man, but a guy with a lot of athletic talent. Thunderbirds are happy to have him, and here comes a substantial pull. That is a Max Shepard style pull, though Max Shepard is not here. I think that might have come from Jesse Evans, and he settles in on defense along with John Diesel Diamichis. Evans rushing up to try to double team, and fortunately for the AlleyCats, that thing is corralled by Danger Schwartz, who throws it up, and a whole lot of klutzy bids there, and some contact. Brian Heim calls contact. Not entirely clear who was guilty of the infraction, but it doesn't really matter because there were a number of candidates. However, Joey Carey's going to set up now behind Travis Carpenter. Looks like we got Plew at the front of the stack. He goes to the break, and he's got company there. And in the form of Anson Repperman, who just is not able to make a bid quickly enough. But he's frustrated. You can see he punts his hat, which rebounds off the Eric sign. Good opportunity for us to call examples to the Early Recognition is Key program, which tries to teach young people about the importance of good health and particularly cancer detection. The score is 6-6 right now, 2 minutes and 14 seconds remaining in this quarter. It has been an up and down, back and forth sort of affair, with neither team able to make a definitive statement on defense and thus pull away. You probably noticed, along with these new faces on the Thunderbirds sideline, some old faces not in the game tonight. I mentioned Steve McGilsky. Turns out that the human backwards hat and the very durable and venerable David Vatz is not on the field tonight, but he said he threatened to come up and share some of his insight and wisdom with us, and actually he didn't have to offer. I asked him to. I'm excited to have Dave come and be in the booth with us. He's always got something interesting to say. And speaking of interesting, here comes a big crossfield hammer from Thorne to Tad Whistle. Tad has a lot to look at, but he decides he'd rather give it back to Max. And right now the handlers content to play defense, play catch against this zone. And a somewhat risky pass that gets through to Max Thorne. Now it's in the hands of Trucks Trimble. He's been playing it pretty safe tonight. And can't get much safer than the hands of Max Thorne, who is double teamed by Kasperzicki. And looks like Kasperzicki and Kasperzicki. That's what threw me off there. That was Will and Wally. Coming across here is number 12 Ringwood. Running with it is young Kasperzicki. Loskar rounds out that cup. And number 23 Zach Zebar. Deep is Levi Jacobs. And this one settles down. It's an upside downer, and Tad Whistle catches it. Being patient. Max Thorne kind of popping that cup from behind. These little retro cuts. Jonathan Mass content to swing it across the field and gain a few yards to Pat Earls. Pat Earls is rarely content to do anything but what he just did, which is to air it out into the usually sure hands of Tyler DiGirolamo. And Tyler ends up on his tuchus, as my grandmother would say, in the end zone. Doesn't manage to secure that under good defensive pressure. And looks like we're going to have a timeout from the AlleyCats. Normally, Ty's going to corral that one, but seeing him on the ground briefly, I think we're just happy to see him get up, apparently comfortable. And, Patrick Earls had a nice shot and a great-looking receiver, and he buried it in the corner where he wanted to. Maybe wasn't counting on quite as much defensive pressure as he got. But as it is, the AlleyCats have a chance to break back. And we're down to 44 seconds on the clock here. And so we have to start thinking about whether or not we're going to see any of those desperate heaves into the end zone. So many exciting AUDL highlights take place at the end of quarters, something you don't have in Ultimate where you don't have a clock, the variety of the game that we're all used to playing. By the way, if you want to talk about AUDL highlights, last night was a real barn burner out west, and one that I think we can look forward to seeing more of. The San Francisco FlameThrowers, featuring Rasmussen and Kittredge and a number of other guys, went to play the San Jose Spiders. And of course, that is an outfit that won an AUDL championship with just those players a couple of years ago. And then of course, that traveling band went to form a super group down in Dallas, which is still a pretty strong lineup and maybe a favorite to win. But those FlameThrowers still have to get through that very difficult West. And they made a statement last night, winning by 1. So if you want to dial up that stream, you're going to see a terrific game. And now the disc is in play. Diamichis on the field, along with Fedorenko. And here comes a big throw to a wide open Jake Fella. And Anson Repperman arrives, but too late. Looks like the Thunderbirds were figuring that they might be able to contain the AlleyCats down in their end of the field and fell asleep a little bit on the deep. You know, with deep defenders like Fedorenko, Diamichis, Repperman, you kind of want to bait that throw a little bit because more than once a game, you're going to end up getting one. Wind is a little bit shifty, as I said. If you look at the flagpole in the east end zone, you can see it's blowing straight down there, but it tends to swirl around in this stadium. And so every now and then one's going to get popped up, and those big guys, you saw how quickly Anson closed that distance, but not quickly enough. Meanwhile, with 32 seconds left, the AlleyCats have a chance to take a lead into the second quarter, but not if the Thunderbirds can help it. Here comes Kasper Zicki. Might see that zone again. He throws a pull down. It's straight and flat, but eventually lands out of bounds. Kind of crept towards that sideline. Jonathan Mast says no thanks. Max Thorne will pick it up. Wagner and Jarvis and the younger Kasper Zicki look like they're going to round out the cup. Levi Jacobs in the middle, and Alex Hamilton and Zach Zebarth in that second level of defenders, and then finally, all the way in the back. Come on now, Patrick Earls has it, laces one up to Beardsley, who very safely catches it and then finds Fedorenko. Tyler DiGirolamo in the middle of the field. Rather than throwing it to Jonathan Mast, he shuffles it to Max Thorne. Thorne finds Fedorenko on the goal line. Fedorenko looks to get it back to Thorne. He catches it with momentum towards our sideline. On the doorstep is Jonathan Mast. Scott Trucks Trimble sprinting towards him, and then Tyler DiGirolamo just breaks free. And you have to wonder, if you're Ryan Jarvis, how it is that it's a Hobson's choice, as they say, right? There's no, as Simon and Garfunkel said in Mrs. Robinson, any way you look at it, you lose. You either play all the way to the force and don't let Tyler DiGirolamo rush that pylon, but then you're giving a thrower like Max Thorne or Jonathan Mast a wide open break opportunity. And, that's almost as deadly as a wide open Tyler DiGirolamo, but not quite. And we'll be checking in at the quarter, and hopefully we'll come back down with some stats. Now, our situation is this. We've got a tie game. We have 4 seconds left in the first quarter. And as you know, in the AUDL, but just to refresh your memory, the clock does not start in this last minute until the first offensive pass is completed. And so it doesn't start when the catch is made, and that gives these teams an opportunity to get down on the pull cover. And this short pull will give them an opportunity for Huck too. Ames looking, finds Ploux. Will Ploux have time? He's got 1 second. I don't know that it certainly sounds like he got it off. And catch your D's, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't think he's in. I do not think he is in. Looks like Schwartz goes up there and Kramer makes the call. And folks, I don't have the replay in front of me. We might be able to dial something up at some point, but I don't think I need one. There is a clear reminder that you should catch your D's if you possibly can. That one popped up and Schwartz gets hold of it, but his feet came down and they were clearly just on the west side of the goal line. And so the Thunderbirds managed to hold off the AlleyCats. Last minute heave from Keenan Ploux, which I was surprised how long that 1 second lasted. And the score is 7-7. So we were talking about Eric, and early recognition is key. And the big focus on Youth Ultimate, not just here in Pittsburgh, but across the country. And we see some of our young disc runners over here. We've got a couple of kids on this sideline, and they're trying to coordinate. It looks like a dance routine of some sort. Listen, if you are, here we've got Christy Lowry down here, who's the executive director of Pittsburgh Ultimate, and she's probably going to talk about some of the youth playing opportunities in town. If you're listening to the live stream and you are a young player, or if you are a parent or a brother or a sister or a friend, a babysitter, a kindergarten teacher, whatever, of a young athlete who might be interested in learning how to play this game a little bit better, there are all sorts of opportunities. There's Camp Spirit of the Game, which Pittsburgh Ultimate runs in 3 different locations throughout the summer. 1-week camps with some of the best instructors in the game, including some of these Thunderbirds who will come out and work with your kids. And Thunderbird Jack Slevin was a counselor for my kids last year, and they just loved him. Terrific guy. And there's also the Elite Ultimate Academy for older players, and of course Pittsburgh's youth club teams, Moxie for the girls, Impulse and its junior team for the boys. And I think what we're seeing presented right now on the field is another youth opportunity. It's really special, and that is the Pulse Scholarship. And we've got Maria Bozek, who is, I think, maybe the inaugural winner. And I'm not sure which of the twins, because there are a couple of terrific players in Pull, and one of them just won the Pull Scholarship. That is a $1,000 a year scholarship for a Pittsburgh Ultimate player, a high school Ultimate player, who is going to go to college here in the Pittsburgh area. And that goes through all 4 years of college. And you see David Vatz walking over. I don't know if that's on our monitors, but you see this picture being taken. And David Vatz and former Thunderbird Darren Schultz inaugurated that scholarship many years ago. It's almost fully endowed at this point. And Pittsburgh Ultimate, Youth Ultimate continues to grow. So whether it's Camp Spirit of the Game, the Elite Ultimate Academy, our U19 Summer Leagues, Moxie, Pulse, Impulse. This is a wonderful game to get your kids to play. It's not only terrific for them, it's a game that can be played with mixed teams, boys and girls, men and women on the field together, working together as teammates and learning to respect each other and to treat each other as partners in the task of advancing that disc down the field. And if you're lucky enough, like I am, you get a chance to play with one of your kids, as I did today, and Will in our summer league. My daughter Maya and I played some pickup, and then she helped our boys team finish up with an 8-1 record as they won today. And we were a little short for numbers against Obama Academy, so she rostered for us. And maybe she'll get a chance to watch this. She played great, and I'm proud of her, and I encourage everybody to make Ultimate a family affair. Jonathan Mass sends one out to Tad Whistle. I don't know if Tad was expecting to gain that many yards, but he took hold of it, and he throws one of his patented scoobers. And you can almost hear the crowd react to that one. They're happy about it. Almost as happy as Mark Fedorenko catching that little blade from Tyler DiGirolamo and sending it to Jonathan Mast. And it doesn't take but 13 seconds for the Thunderbirds to pull ahead again, 8-7, here at the beginning of this second quarter. We're going to have to talk to Tad about his experience tonight. He spoke to me before the game, and he said, you know, I'm not really accustomed to going out there and playing offense in the AUDL, and hoped it would go well. I got to say, it's going pretty well. See some little yellow mini discs flying up at the booth here, and our stadium personality, the black blazered Bill Holman with that wireless mic, throwing those souvenirs up to the fan. And that's just another thing that you don't get if you're watching the live stream, and that is some of the fun that Billy brings to this game. He'll be playing games at halftime, and we're playing games right now, and Keenan Pluth throws up a scoober that Joey Carey catches, and he sends it up the line to Fella. Fella is being trapped hard by Diamichis. He sends it back and loses about 15 yards to Carey. Carey catches it again. He's kind of making a habit of that. A bid, and now another bid as a stumbling, looks like, is that for Della? on the sideline. And here's one last bid. We don't know if it was inbounds or out of bounds, and it's called inbounds for Travis Carpenter. Hold on a second, though. Looks like that call might be overruled. Brian Heim looking straight down the line. And we're going to have a little conference between these two officials. These guys work together a lot. And my sense is Kramer didn't necessarily see it. He was shielded a little bit in the back of the end zone. He's got the sun in his eyes. And he's discussing it with Brian. And Brian's telling him, hey, I had perspective on that. And whether you're playing with refs or playing with observers, playing the self-officiated spirit of the game, best perspective always rules on the field. Now with the disc in his hands, whipped up to Trucks Trimble. It's quickly deflected, and it doesn't seem to want to go down. But apparently the disc doesn't lie. Hard defense by Fridella, and then Carpenter playing catch with Joey Carey, and they score right in the corner where they thought they scored before. So Carpenter scores twice. After a couple guys caught it twice, we're still not yet a minute into this period, but it's 8-8. Kenny Fridella played real well for the Thunderbirds in his professional debut for the Pittsburgh franchise last week. And he is a mixed player, part of that tremendous mixed tradition that is growing in Pittsburgh. Alloy last year made it to nationals, and they continue to grow that program. As I mentioned last week on our telecast, there were over 100 players who came out to try out for one of the 3 Pittsburgh mixed club teams. That would be Alloy, the top team, Crucible, the B team. I-79 likes to get together and play sometimes, and maybe even Love Bomb will make an appearance. The disc appears on the sideline here, the home sideline, as the shadows start to descend. So does a double team on Patrick Earls, who doesn't seem to mind. He throws it over the shoulder of of Hefferon. I'm sorry, I made a mistake on that call. Looks like Zebarth was on the defense, and it's a bobble by Tyler DiGirolamo, who just can't catch it, and instead picks up the mark on number 17, John Jarbush. It is deflected, and looks like we might get a contact call. Nope, timeout was called. Timeout was called, and we'll see where the stall comes back in. But that was trouble with a capital T, as the Thunderbirds clamped on the defense, were not allowing an easy dump, and there was nothing open downfield. And so with a timeout, 10:34 remaining in this period, it's 8-8, Thunderbirds and AlleyCats. So that mixed program has contributed quite a number of players this year to the Thunderbirds. Among them is Alex Thomas, who is out this evening, not wearing his cleats, wearing that white away Thunderbird jersey. We expect to see him back. And some of the other Thunderbirds you might not be as familiar with would be number 55, Josh Sung. Expect to see him a lot on defense, but coming out on defense right now are Fridella, Maxtat, Diamichis, Gelati, Repperman. Let's see who's at the back there. Looks like Isaac Smith. Finally rounding out this lineup will be Mark Fedorenko. Looking to pick it up. I think that is Ames. Flanked to his left by Plu. And then all the way across the field is Carpenter. Often he's downfield. Fellis makes an away cut, and then it's caught on the sideline by Gross. Gross leans back, throws a backhand, and then sees Plu cutting upfield, but that is cut off by an alert Repperman. And now it's back towards that far corner and on the goal line. Fedorenko on the mark. Maxtat makes it very difficult for Ames. That was terrific work by those two rangy Thunderbird defenders. Fedorenko on the mark, Maxtat on defense, the UNCW product. He is a handler. He picks it up. He's walking it back to the goal line where he will turn around. He is marked by Ames. He's got a vertical stack. Fridella breaks out for a handler cut, and then he throws a nifty around throw. That lefty forehand to Captain Mark Fedorenko, who sends it precisely to midfield as the Thunderbirds celebrate, going ahead 9-8. sitting atop the Midwest Division, as you are probably aware, is no surprise, and that's the Madison Radicals. And this year, the Thunderbirds are trying to solve the puzzle of the Madison Radicals. Each of the first 2 years, they finished second. They have secured a home playoff game. One they were able to play right here in Pittsburgh, just down the river, and one they had to go to Madison to play because of scheduling snafu. But that's the big goal and the big question. How can they knock off Madison? Of course, they've got a lot of work to do in this division just to get close. Gross is one of those people who's going to make it difficult. He catches a big inside out, then throws one, catches the pop out from Fella, and then rips a backhand up the line, and it is a pretty one. And Aaron Buss doesn't even give chase. So Fella to Brock, and with 9:32 left, it's 9-9. We've got some discussion over here, and we might have to go back and review our broadcast because the question that I just heard Andrew Gardner ask is, Andrew Gardner, of course, the GM, is coming up and says, what is the score of this game? We've got a little disagreement about it, and Elliot, who was one of the, there we go, down here on our camera, we've got 9-9. And that's what we have on the scoreboard, so everything's good. And Elliot Diamond says, yeah, 9s is good. Elliot is working with Pittsburgh Ultimate as well, having left the Appalachian Trail some months ago. His trail name is Flick, and we see a big one from Max Thorne. Nobody's got a better flick, and there's no better receiver than Tyler DiGirolamo, who settles in underneath it, squeezes it hard with both of those friction gloves, and then a little relief, flips it over his shoulder. You know, one of the hardest things to do in this game is to settle underneath a disc that's got your name on it, spinning lazily on the wind, wafting gently down into your hands, no defender within 10 yards of you, and all you've got to do is quiet your mind long enough not to screw it up. And Tyler had screwed it up on that forehand, that lefty forehand blade up the line from Patrick Earls. And he had dropped one earlier in the game in the back corner of our west end zone that I'm sure he'd like to have back, although mere mortals would probably not count that as a drop, but just a throw that was a little bit too far. And here's a roller pull that maybe we don't want to try that experiment again. It crosses the sideline at the 50-yard line. And we see from the tattooed calves of referee Kramer facing us in the broadcast booth, he marks it right there. Travis Carpenter will pick it up. And Fella going deep. We've got Schwartz and a little bit of traffic there. A little bit, Carey and Plough were both trying to get open. Carey in front of Travis Carpenter and Plough behind him, and they started to run cuts together with each other. And the discombobulation on the part of the handlers on Indianapolis leads to an errant repositioning throw that Plough can't catch up with. Let's see if the Thunderbirds can take advantage. Ferdella throws it to Smith, and it wouldn't surprise me if Coach Hogan, looking at those first two throws, says, you know, you guys are on a short leash, and I'm going to call a timeout if things slow down here. This one whipped out to Ferdella. The D team still on the field with the disc in their hand. Smith loads one up, and he puts a floater out there. Gelati getting position underneath it. He positions himself very well, but Brock manages to go up and get a piece of it. And Coach Hogan might be thinking now, maybe I should have called that timeout. It's still early in the quarter with 8:29, but a break opportunity in a game like this, where both teams have managed to hold serve most of the time and were separated by only a goal, would have given the Thunderbirds a 2-goal cushion, and that's something they could build on. So maybe a timeout would have been appropriate. Juking against Maxstat downfield is Fella, but instead it's caught by Carey, and a nice forward layout by Gross, who makes sure and immediately is set upon by Repperman, and he throws an inside-out backhand, and I don't think this one is going to come down in bounds. That is a throw that probably needs a little bit of bend on it. You're going to throw that thing inside out. You need a little bit more cushion from the sidelines. And Brian Heim this time says, you know what? It never really came in. And so an error in judgment there, and Xavier Maxstat picks it up with this lineup's second chance to break. Now it's in the hands of Gelati. Gelati looks at what he has. Ferdella going upfield. Doesn't like it. Doesn't like the strike cut by Maxstat. And then it's in the hands of Robarge. Robarge swings it across the field where it is caught by Diamichis, who sends an inside out, which is subsequently dropped. Plu with the disc, centers it to Carey. Carey looking, sends a high one out to Brock, who goes up and gets it. A lot of spring in those legs. Robarge giving chase after Brock going upfield. Things are getting messy. Diamichis manages to get in Carpenter's way, and the disc falls to the turf. Magstad picks it up. You know he wants the jacket, and he's got Repperman. He throws one with a little bend on it, a little knife, but it floats up nicely. Repperman catches it at the 15. He's in the middle of the field, and this time, Coach Hogan calls the timeout. And that was wise, not just because the D team might have been feeling those legs a little bit. That was a 3-turnover point for them, but also because Anson didn't really have anybody to go to. And this is just one of those aspects, another one of those cool things about AUDL Ultimate, that if you're used to playing in your local rec league or for your club team, even playing at the national level, you know that a timeout doesn't allow you to substitute. But here in the AUDL, you can. And that allows coaches to pull just a couple more strings than they're used to pulling in the more conventional the more conventional USAU game, played according to the 11th edition rules. And now we get an offensive lineup on the field. Looks like Tyler DiGirolamo will anchor the stack. Max Thorne picks it up. Jonathan Mass directly behind him. Patrick Earl second in line. Tad Whistle, and then Trucks Trimble at the back. Countering with a defensive lineup of Mike Kabira, Levi Jacobs, and sandwiching the stack at the back, you've got John Jones, Alex Hamilton, and I'm sure I'm missing one. And again, from this distance, I hope you'll forgive me with those little numbers. It's not the easiest thing to see. So Thorne has the disc, looks to his left. Disc is counted in by Kramer, and the whistle blows, and they are off. Tyler goes to the break. There's a kind of parting of the waters, and Jonathan Mass having to do a lot of work. Instead, it's Tyler catches it in the goal line, sends it to Jonathan Mass, and he's got a wide open Tad Whistle, and he said he might catch a goal tonight, and he does. He does. He says, I might catch one of those, and it's an unaccustomed thing for him. Usually he's on defense, and when he is on defense, he is a defensive team handler. He's playing a little bit of handler and a little bit of cutter, and you can hear those yes, 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 yes chants. And Big Steve McGilski, it's terrific. You see those guys with a little bit of body English on the sideline. A great friendship, those two guys. Both of them Edinburgh guys, I believe, and you know, they just bring a lot of fun to this team. There's, you know, you follow these guys on social media. See a lot of great pictures from a lot of great places. We all know the HAF, which is not an acronym that's translatable on a family broadcast, but hard is the first part of it. And they like to scowl and flash traffic hand signals that sometimes get you into a confrontation. But it's all in good fun, and that was fun for Tad, I'm sure, catching the disc. Jesse Evans scrambles down, and he's joined by Robarge, but instead thrower finds Schwartz. Schwartz has it on our sideline. Heffron puts a force home mark on him. Jesse Evans contains the swing against Ames. Ames is looking. He's got a little bit of a double team, and the disc is going backwards. Jesse manages to scramble. Schwartz sends it out into the middle. Carpenter switches up the field. Fedorenko joins him. He throws a floating inside a background. Can Klug get to it? He does and catches it in bounds. Robarge is on him. Josh Sung follows Gross. Gross laces an inside out to Brock. Indianapolis moving it, Fella in the end zone, pursued by Hammonds, who manages to catch enough of that angle. And now Hammonds is in the back corner. Can he get there in time? And he does. And he makes sure, by corralling an interception, learning from the end of the half fiasco where the D wasn't caught, Fella's going to mark up on Pat. Pat puts it out to Sung. Sung looks to Robarge, but instead laces one to Jesse Evans. And this one must have slipped out of his hands because Ames picks up the turnover. It was just turfed. And then a throw that looks a little bit risky off of Jesse's bid, but it settles into Brock's hands. And unfortunately, that block yields no goal for the Thunderbirds. In fact, it hardly yields 5 yards. And it's still 11-9, so the Thunderbirds widening that lead a little bit, chipping away. And you have to wonder whether or not Indianapolis is going to be able to keep pace with the T-Birds throughout the whole game. They're slugging it away with them right now. But as we heard from Coach Leonard, Eric Leonard, who, by the way, wanted me to give my best to Callie Frost, his wife, one of the #1 Indy fans. And while we're at it, let's welcome all of them, but especially Callie. Had a nice conversation with your husband earlier on, And he's enjoying the road trip, and I'm sure he's eager to get back home to you. But in any event, he told us, look, a lot of these new additions, and Nick Hutton echoed this, they come at the bottom of the lineup. And so in a game that involves this big, wide field and only 20 people on that active roster, will they be able to keep up? And it's hard to keep up with guys like Max Thorne and Tyler DiGirolamo. Max has it, shuffles it to Jonathan Mast, and he sends it out to Patrick Earls. And that pit combination of Earls and Thorne and DiGirolamo out there on the field and making defense very difficult. Everything moving towards this sideline, and John Mast reaches back and pulls one back and then sends one to Tad Whistle. And does he toe it in? He does! He's making a habit of it. We had student body right. We talked last week about the Starship Enterprise, the bridge tilting, and the whole defense rolling over to the home sideline, and that's usually a signal to send it back the other way, to cut against the grain. But it looks to me like Jonathan Mast liked that cut that he saw, and Tad Whistle was able to get underneath it, anchor those toes on those pretty blue cleats, which I got kind of attached to during that pickup game. Looks like he cleaned them up, got the dirt off them, and they planted those toes firmly in the turf. And fortunately, referee Heim was right on it, put his hands up, and the Thunderbirds find themselves with 5 minutes left in this half, up 12-10. AlleyCats about to receive a forehand blading roller pull, and that, I don't know about that AUDL hot stamp when it's turned towards you, it looks a little bit like the old Master tournament. And speaking of the old Master, here is Cameron Brock giving chase on this shot from Travis Carpenter, and Nick Gelati can only watch as Brock, something of an ageless wonder, covers an awful lot of ground in not a lot of time, and pulls it was really just 13 seconds there is all it took the AlleyCats to catch up and close it back down to within one. But the Thunderbirds still more than on serve, and they're sending out that very steady and very sure-handed offensive lineup. I don't know from our stats folks whether or not they've been broken tonight, but I don't think so. And so they've managed to hold serve, which is what they're supposed to do, and this is definitely offense A for the Thunderbirds tonight. You're familiar already. One break each is what we've got? Okay, thank you. For Elliot Diamond equivocating, but definitely telling me there have been breaks for both sides, but I don't know if it was this offensive squad that suffered that break. And Jonathan Mast settling down underneath it. Flips it to Max Thorne, nothing surprising about that. Loskar on defense along with Ringwood. And now reversing that handler cut, doing a strike cut is Mast and Thorne in a sort of three-man weave right now, playing what's sometimes called the homie offense. Tad Whistle working downfield, sent across the field where it is caught by Fedorenko. Fedorenko winds up a backhand, and biting on that backhand a little bit was Loskar. He kind of looked like he went to sleep a little bit on it, and now underneath it is Hamilton and DiGirolamo. Hamilton goes up a little bit too early. He's a tall guy, and if he had waited, he might have come down with that block, but here's the thing. When the guy standing just to your right is Tyler DiGirolamo, you don't want to jump at the same time he does because you got to like the odds for Ty D. And as it was, just like in the famous duel, Alex Hamilton shot first. And just like in that duel in Weehawken, New Jersey, Alex Hamilton missed. And Tyler DiGirolamo managed to come down with it and make the score 13-11. Little Hamilton reference there. I'm sure that Alex's friends and family back in Indy, if they're watching the stream, are groaning. Yeah, I'm sure nobody's ever done that before. And if it weren't for a hit Broadway musical, well, he'd just be the guy on the 10. As it is, he's a sensation of the screen. And speaking of a sensation, a block on an inside-out high release. Jesse Evans manages a sensational block, and here, just 20 yards away from a break, Maxtat starts it out, finds Gelati. Gelati shelves one, but running underneath it is Diamichis, and Cheezel circles underneath one and then does a flip. You can see he is fired up. You can bet that Gelati didn't think much of that throw. Not sweet. But as it sort of circled around, Diamichis followed it, did a blind read, laid out, caught it, got up, spiked it, plate down, not edge. We're gentlemen here. And then he flipped, landed on his feet, gave a mighty roar, pumped his fist, and came off the field to the congratulations of his teammates. And this is something that when we had Tad in the booth last week, which was just so much fun, but he looks like he's having more fun down on the field, and I'm having more fun watching him. Tad told us Diesel is the kind of guy who just fires up the team. He's the first guy, he says, out there, posting on the workout thread. He runs hard, he lays out in practice. And now we got another guy who fires up his team, Keenan Plew, marked in the middle of the field by Robarge, and then he sends an arcing hammer out there, and it looks like it's stripped, and Fella turns around, and he does the sort of plaintive gesture to Brian Heim, but Heim was all over it, and the Birdman doesn't argue. He starts to back up, as does Pat Hammonds. Fella will have the disc in his hands. He's going to be flanked by Carey as a sidecar to his left. Carpenter anchors the stack. Loskar's there too. It's sent across the field to nobody. Bus dances around it, picks it up, sends it back to Robarge. Robarge looking at what he has, and whoa, a big bid from Carpenter, but Hammonds holds on to it, is unfazed by it, and now Heffron has it, sends an easy one up to Jesse Evans to the fourth sideline. He's got Bus going deep against Loskar. He is double teamed, and he is stalled. And maybe a little bit of inexperience there from Jesse Evans. Not a lot of time playing in the pros, lots of time playing by the usual rules. Used to hearing that stall count counted out loud. Used to 10 seconds, or at least what passes for 10 seconds at the club level, which is usually about 7, but you can at least hear it. And here is Trimble settling in on the mark. This thing goes out to Carpenter on the sideline. Heffron settles in, defends him with a straight up. It is shelved, but Levi Jacobs has no trouble coming down with it, and he sends a neat little forehand, but one with a bit too much blade, and unfortunately, we've got a timeout on the field as Rick Gross goes down, and it's hard for us to see what it is that he's clutching. He's coming to a sitting up position. He reaches up and he asks for a hand up, and that's a relief to everybody. And you can hear the applause from the Thunderbirds fans, and I don't even think he's going to go out of the game. Hold on a second. We got Anthony Mobile, who is the trainer from UPMC Sports Medicine, and he says, hey, Rick, you've got teammates. Why don't you come on over here with me, and we'll make sure you're okay. As the leader in blocks and goals for his squad, and for and high up on that stat sheet in the AUDL, they don't need Rick Gross to be hurt. A hard in cut, caught by Heffron on an air bounce from Pat Hammonds. And now the Birdman with it on the sideline, marked by Fella. He whips it back there to Pat. Pat looking at his options. He had, looks like it was Robarge going up the line, but instead Max Thorne gets it, and he finds his old friend, Heffron, actually his new friend, looked like Ty D for a second, but the next pass was irrelevant because Fella's going deep, and we have a bit of a height mismatch back there with Max Thorne and Specs Fella, but anybody who has seen Max's Callahan highlight reel, oh man, this is great defense over here. Give that travel call. Give that travel call to number 14 for the Thunderbirds, and that's Kenny Fridella. And he's a guy, oh, I'm sorry, that's Robarge. That is Robarge. And he deserves that because he did such a tremendous job on the dump cutter that eventually forced the travel. Loskar throws it, Bus Lanks behind him. Now it's in the hands of Carpenter. Carpenter's got Plew back. And again, really nice defense from Robarge, who forces a wide swing. It is caught, sent back against the grain to Carey. Carey catches it running towards the sidelines. Plew has beaten, maybe tired Robarge up the line. Now he is on the doorstep. He centers it, being chased in by Heffron. Carpenter throws it. Loskar tries to catch a pass which may not have been intended for him, but wasn't going to reach Fella. And whoa. It looks to me like not only did he hurt his pride, it looks like Aaron Buss hurt his hand trying to throw that one. It came out as a blade, and now Carpenter and Plew playing catch with each other, sent across the field to Jacobs in the middle. Jacobs sends up one to John Jones. John Jones catches it, looks up the sideline. It's cut off by Jesse Evans, and so back in Carey's hands. Carey tries to set up that cut to the middle, but instead Carpenter breaks it to the sideline and then finds an easy forehand. And that's got to be disheartening for the Thunderbirds, who had a couple of opportunities to maybe send that back down the field. The O team clicking on all cylinders, the D team getting opportunities, playing terrific defense, and we want to give big props to Jordan Robarge there, who did a really nice job on a very, very tough handler to cover Keenan flew and managed to force a travel call and almost a stall call. And at the same time, he might have gotten a little bit tired. And so we've seen that a couple times from the D team, able to get the turnover but not convert. We've got 25 seconds left. You know, one of the things I'm looking forward to, speaking of Jordan Robar,
getting everybody on the same page. So teaching the systems that we run, the offenses and defenses that we run, and also just making sure that everybody's on the same page. Because I think when it comes down to it, we always want to play a team game, and we want to ensure that everybody is on the same page for whatever it is that we're trying to do at any given moment. So we have people who haven't played within our system. We have to teach kind of from the beginning and make sure they all understand everything that we're trying to do.
Gotcha. Meanwhile, on the field, Joey Carey sends one up, finds Danger Schwartz, and operating downfield against Nick Gelati is Cameron Brock. And here's an inside-out lace to Keenan Blue in the middle of the field. Fakes an inside-out as the mark settles in on him. I think there might be Xavier Maxted. Now it's back in the hands of Carey, and it looks like there's a little contact. Time is right on top of it.
A little bit of contact.
Yep. Is that a throw that frustrates you as a marker? Do you feel like that's maybe a makeup call for something earlier?
No, not really. I mean, it was definitely contact. There was definitely a foul there. But.
And a recovered Rick Schwartz hits Cameron Brock in the back of the end zone, and the AlleyCats take that opening pull of the quarter, and they bring the score with 11 minutes left to within 14-13. And let's take a look at this team that's coming out on the field. It's a team that probably would include you, Mr. Vats, if you weren't up here with me tonight.
Yep, most likely.
How much of a difference does it make? And it's almost a rhetorical question. Having Max Thorne and Tyler DiGirolamo back on the field and at full strength,
yeah, I mean,
or close to it.
You can see it with every play that we have. I mean, Tyler and Max are so good at what they do, and they command so much attention from the defense that not only are they doing great things out there, but it makes things easier for everybody else on the field. So that's one of the big things that we all noticed not having those guys out there last year is it makes everything harder for everyone. It's not just the two of them.
Max sends one up to Mark Fedorenko, a man called Condor back at Dayton apparently, and he finds Patrick Earls, who is always ready to unleash it, and throws a big fake, which Wally Kasperzicki shuts down. This one sent inside out to the Birdman, who will immediately look to shuffle it back to a handler, and he does. Tad Witzel has it, leans out and throws an inside out to Ty D, racing up the field, marked by John Jones, looks to break, Jones reacts, and he throws that high release flick to Jonathan Mast, who now has a full field to look at, and decides he just send it back into that corner to Tyler DiGirolamo. And
boy, Tyler has just been tremendous this game.
I will tell you that is his 8th goal, thanks to, you can hear Matty Francis over the PA announce that is his 8th goal. And we've also got some other stats for you. We've got 4 assists for Max Thorne, and it looks like also Jonathan Mast. And I imagine if you add those two up, you might end up with those 8 goals coming mostly from those 2 guys. And it just underscores what you said, Dave, and that is that with them in the offense, things just move more smoothly. It must be such a relief to get the disc in your hands, as you sometimes do after a yardage-getting catch, and know that one of those guys is working to get open against his man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that Tyler does, and that helps everybody on the field, and you can see it happen, Tyler will not only draw his defender, but also draw attention from other defenders, and that makes it very, very easy for other cutters and other handlers out on the field, because they have, another defender poaching off.
Well, we got a big shot deep, running underneath. It looks like Maxstat, but Brock manages to catch it. I think that one came from Rick Schwartz. He loaded it up and he threw that forehand. And Maxstat doesn't look like he has he doesn't look like he has AUDL legs quite yet.
It takes some time to get into shape for the season. We're still on game number 2, and so I'm sure he'll continue to improve his stamina and his speed as the season goes on here.
Talk about him, because he's got an illustrious reputation.
Yep.
What does he bring to the team that maybe was missing in past years?
Well, one of the things that I think you think about with him is what I would call almost like world beater throws. He's got the throws of somebody like Sam Van Dusen or Pat Earls. He's a guy that can put it full field and really can put it anywhere on the field that you want him to. And so that's a great thing to add to our D-lines, to have somebody who's such a talented thrower out there.
Speaking of great throws and absent friends, We have Max Thorne back, but Alex Thorne, who's been a mainstay in the Thunderbirds lineup for the past couple of years, is in England. He's studying, and he won't be out here for him. Does that make a big difference to you guys, and how does it limit the offense or change it? Fedorenko now with the disc, by the way, looks for Trimble, sends it back to Thorne, who shuffles it to Mast. Looks to break, and he does with a little bit of a lefty. Actually, I think he might be a lefty. No, he is not. So he threw that lefty to Tad Whistle, who gets it back from him. These guys swirling around. Tad throws a kind of scoober and another little lefty backhand. And right now they're just in a weave, like the drill that you used to do back in college. They expand the field a little bit out into the middle. You've got Earls running away from Thorne. He was tempted to throw that one up, but instead he figures things are working out so well with John Mast, and now he's got vision. He's being forced to our sideline. Snaps one up to Ty D in the middle, and he just throws a backhand, which finds a receiver in Patrick Earls, and the Thunderbirds are up 16-14.
And I mean, one of the things you were saying before about losing Alex, I mean, it's definitely a huge loss. He's such a good player. Like his brother, he's a great thrower. He's very athletic, really fast. But on the bright side, we get John Mast back. John Mast looks like he is in great shape for the season. He's ready to go. I mean, you can see by the way he's running around right now, he's going to be able to take over a lot of the duties that Alex had last year.
A couple of years ago when he made his debut for the Thunderbirds, he played very safely.
Yes.
And that was appropriate for a guy with his youth and inexperience. But he now plays with a lot of verve and confidence. And I agree with you, having talked to him, the knee that he hurt does not seem to be a factor at all.
Nope, he seems like he is as with it as he's ever been, so it's great to see.
It is. This pull settles down at the goal line, missing Max Shepard's pull. It looks like Fella thought to go deep against Nick Gelati, who is celebrating his 24th birthday today. Travis Carpenter, disc on the sideline, being forced backwards, and he puts one out in front of Carey, who lays out, picks it up. Hammond puts the mark on. He slings it into the middle. Jesse Evans there, but not in time to make a bid against Danger Schwartz. And now Gross has it in his hands, shuffles it up to Carpenter, making a cut against the brain, and then he steps and throws a neat little backhand inside out. And those are two guys who have played together for years. And it seems to me that these guys know where Cameron, Brock, and Keenan Plew are going to be all the time. And talk about Travis Carpenter. He had a tremendous bid a couple of years ago. Actually, it was last year at Founders Field that Aaron Buss laid out in front of him, and Aaron got the better of him.
Yeah.
But you pretty much have to keep track of where Travis Carpenter is on the field all the time, don't you? Offense and defense.
Travis is a great player. He's got a lot of really good high-level experience, and it shows out there. I think when you talk about this team in general, they are a team that has a lot of chemistry with each other. They've had a lot of familiar faces year to year, and they've all been playing together for a while. So when you watch them play, you can really see that in what they do. I mean, they're all on the same page all the time.
Talk a little bit about that formula in the AUDL, because it seems like there are a few groups. This is a very nice pull coming down to Tad Whistle if it settles in bounds, and it doesn't. But there are a few teams that can afford to go the Roughnecks route. Or the FlameThrowers. And then everybody else needs to grow, particularly in the Midwest it seems, needs to grow up from the grassroots. Is it possible for a team, besides perhaps Madison, to do that and compete with the very best teams in this league?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at our team, even from last year, from 2 years ago, we were a team that was capable of beating Madison. We did beat Madison 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a number of losses to them since then, but you're talking about, we're a team that's been close with them a bunch of times. So I think certainly they are not an unbeatable force in our division. So, I think it's just going to be a matter of playing our best game on the days that we play them.
Got a little travel there. Kabira had the disc after an uncharacteristic turnover from Patrick Earls, who seemed to be looking to Kramer plaintively, hoping for some sort of call, though he wasn't quite sure which, but the disc came out of his hands in a funny way. And then the Thunderbirds clamped on the sideline defense. Kabira's got it now 10 yards further back. Tyler D's got the mark on him. The offense is playing defense, and looks like a timeout has been called, probably by Hogan, so that offense doesn't play defense, but rather the defensive team comes on and plays defense. I was talking to Dave Lionetti about this. He said that while the team is still going to be running O&D lines, there might be more mixing it up. Tonight it looks like it's been pretty much straight O&D. Do you think that you're going to get to see a lot of people staying on the field sometimes after timeouts, or playing in unaccustomed roles?
I think we're still going to be playing, O and D lines. I think the main change that we're making this year is we're going to have 8 or 9 people who are rotating on O, so we're not always playing the same people. It also gives us the opportunity when we need to bring people like Ethan or people like Mark over to defense for big defensive points. And we're not necessarily worried about tiring them out for offense. So having that rotation, that's probably the biggest change that we have this year to allow us to spread it out a little bit more.
Speaking of that rotation, we hope you're back in it very shortly. It's the hamstring you said that's bugging you a little bit?
Actually, the oblique.
Oh,
so that's a weird one.
I've heard of that one before.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like much fun,
Yeah.
but it's always great to see you out on the field, and you've been doing this for a while. It must have felt good to see the full scholarship being given out again.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like you're still having fun playing the pro game, and we have fun watching you.
Yeah, absolutely. This would be my 17th season playing Ultimate now, so.
Wonderful. As it turns out, it's my 27th. So,
unbelievable.
And it is still fun, and as long as it is, why stop doing it?
Absolutely.
Well, congratulations on still playing at such a high level, and you're welcome anytime in the booth. It's been great having you, and let's hope we watch the end of this game. It turns out to be a win.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care.
Travis Carpenter wheels around and then sends one into the middle of the field that Carey manages to catch in front of Kenny Ferdella, who made a really sharp bid for it, and now Carpenter and Carey playing catch with each other. Tyler DiGirolamo working very hard on defense, puts out a little bit of an arm bar. They lose a few more yards, but they reposition the disc. And now, looks like it's in the hands of Cameron Brock. He's marked very effectively by Ferdella, who, once again, Robarge and Ferdella making great plays on defense. Fedorenko runs towards the disc, looking to maybe pick it up. And now the Thunderbirds need somebody to go and get it. And it looks like that somebody's going to be Kenny Ferdella. Sends it out in the middle to Isaac Smith. He's got the home sideline open, and Tyler cuts towards it. And now it's a foot race to the corner, but Tyler decides not to throw it. Instead, sends it out to Smith, and this is going to be a tough one. And Keenan Plew is in position to pick it up. So Tyler making some big plays, but also some uncharacteristic errors tonight that he'll want to iron out, and I know he won't be thrilled about. This finds Carpenter at the middle of the field. He looks down the field. He sees Gross making a big in-cut. Fedorenko quite deep on Fella. Instead it comes to Brock. Brock working on the home sideline. He airs out a forehand, and Fedorenko looks like he got turned around a little bit, just long enough for Specs to go and gather it in. And it's 6:51. It's all tied up, 16-16. So the AlleyCats gain ground on the Thunderbirds. And the defensive team walks off the field with their head down a little bit. Didn't take advantage of that opportunity on the doorstep with Kenny Ferdella's outstanding defense. I want to give a shout out to a member of the AlleyCats staff, Mike, their photographer, travels with them. At halftime, he said since he has nothing to take pictures of at halftime, to bring me up a bowl of a wonderful chili from Revival Chili. And it was all it was cracked up to be. Mike, I really do appreciate that. Brzezicki, the elder, throws a bending pull, which arches over the out-of-the-bounds territory. And it comes back in to Tad Whistle, who handcuffs Max Thorne with a sharp forehand bender. And Max throws a backhand high release, and then wow, there's plenty of contact there. The first one from Ringwood looked as if it was just unintentional, just bumped into him. And then the second one, he extended his arms a little bit, and he seemed to be saying to John Mast, hey man, I was just trying to get my balance, hold you up, whatever. Mast doesn't react to it, and they mark off for 10 yards, and here comes the double team with Ringwood and Kasperzicki, and it's put up high and fortunately brought down by Max Thorne, who snaps off an air bounce to Patrick Earls, sends it back to him with that lefty. Far side of the field is open. They decided to do it in stages with Mast catching the disc. He's got Earls open on his right, but instead sends it back to Thorne in the middle of the field. A vertical stack forms up. Another break throw from Tad Whistle, who sends it back out to Max Thorne. And then popping out of the stack, it looks like Anson Repperman catches it on the goal line, and the hands go up. So Anson, coming in on offense, collects himself a goal. And the Thunderbirds are up 17-16. the AlleyCats, certainly where they wanted to be in this away game. Striking distance on serve. And with the opportunity here to tie this game up with just 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Thunderbirds continue to function really well on offense, still having a little trouble moving the disc when they're on defense. And that is to be expected, as David Batts said. Season is young, so are some of these players. Blue settles in underneath it. Standing right in front of him is Big Mike Ames. Ames catches it. Mark doesn't settle in on him in time to stop him from throwing this one up to Schwartz, and he laces a forehand which pops up in the air, and it looks like he's going to have some company down there, and it's Fella who crashes through a little bit of a picket fence of defenders that included Pat Hammonds and Aaron Buss. Looks like Josh Sung was down there, but none of that stopped Jake Fella from going up and pulling down the 17th goal for the AlleyCats to tie this game up at 7 teams.
It's time for AUDL out-of-town update. Today, right here in the Midwest Division, the Detroit Mechanix beat the Chicago Wildfire in a 23-14 win song.
I want to thank the live stream viewer who encouraged me to breathe more and talk less. I'm kind of enjoying it. You probably are too. Actually, feels a little bit better. Sure, it feels good for Travis Carpenter to throw it this far, but not that far away from the field of play. Bangs off the fence, and then one of our young disc runners throws a nice backhand into referee Kramer, who's going to put this disc in play at the brick mark. Hopefully we're going to be able to find out who those kids are in the orange shirts. They're doing a terrific job tonight. That's a neat thing for them to be part of a pro sporting event. Max Thorne, the big mark on him, sends it up to John Maston. John thought to go back to Max, and Max decides to take off deep. Not a lot of options for him for a second, but John Mass found Patrick Earls. He's looking downfield and sends it to Trimble, and Trucks drops it, I think because Travis Carpenter laid out in front of him, and that's what we sometimes call a karma block. Working downfield right now. Jarvis making a cut. Disc is shuffled up. There's a timeout. Zach Zebarth was working. Sorry, we got a call there. As the light starts to fade, it's hard to see the numbers on the far side of the field. But we can see tie on the mark. This one's sent out. Nice air bounce to reposition it. Calling for cuts over there. Loskar has it in the middle. Carpenter running the offense right now from the back. Nice layout, two-handed grab on the sideline. And looks like Will Kasperzicki sends it to Travis Carpenter. They are on the doorstep. Max Thorne on the mark. Tyler D poaching the lane. And a bid here from the back of the end zone from, looks like Pat Earls, but it comes up a little bit short, and Alex Hamilton ends up seizing the disc in the end zone. And once again, we're all tied up at 17s. I'm getting a correction now. It's 18-17.
Yeah, it should be 18-17.
All right, favor of the AlleyCats. Our scoreboard was lagging a little bit, but now it's caught up, and so am I. It is 18-17. Waiting to update that on the screen. And from Cut and Run Productions, Dave Onomastico types in that 1-8. And the AlleyCats find themselves with the lead, and it's their first lead since very early on in the game. So the Thunderbirds are having to work right now. The AlleyCats, as we expected, didn't yield, but they do the Thunderbirds the favor of throwing a roller pull, which has not been the most successful strategy tonight for either team. And it goes out before midfield. There is a double team on the far side of the field. Disc is picked up, and a hammer is thrown out into the middle. And thank goodness that Anson was there to throw a beautiful inside out. And he finds Jesse Evans in the end zone. You know, the air traffic controller gets so much attention for all those blocks that we forget what a remarkable offensive player he is. He corralled that hammer. Almost anybody else on the field probably would have been vulnerable to a block there, not Anson. He pulled that thing down. and then threw a perfect inside out to Jesse Evans, who gets one of the early goals of his career. I need to make a correction. I'm a year behind the times. Cut and run was the operation that we worked with last year, and we appreciate all the work that they did, but we don't want to give a plug to somebody who's not working so hard as Dave is tonight. Dave's operation is Cut and Run. Cut and Run Studios. Steel Toe. I almost dropped one right here on the air. Steel Toe Films. And Dave is just shaking his head and wondering, why do they call this person talent? Meanwhile, Schwartz has it, looks to crank up one of those big backhands. Fridella on the mark, rifles it across the field, where it finds, looks like it finds Carey. Carey sends one over the head of Fridella, which is gathered in by Plu, and it looked like Diesel had a line on it, but Fella manages to get to it before him. Fridella tries to seal it, but he doesn't, and Brock has it, and rushing over is Jesse Evans, who has been sagging into the middle. And this one shot up the line, and it is blocked. I'm looking down the field, and I think that's Anson. I get my left ear, Elliot Diamond, in my right ear from Steel Toe Productions is Dave Onomastico, but Elliot informs me, yes, that was Anson Repperman. He didn't get all of it, but he got enough. Meanwhile, working downfield out of a horizontal stacker, the Thunderbirds coming in as Jesse Evans, but closing quickly on him was Travis Carpenter, and suddenly the Thunderbirds found themselves with very little space behind them. And looks like a stall in the end zone. And I believe a stall in the end zone counts as a Callahan. And so scoring in an unconventional way, stalling the Thunderbirds out in their own end zone. No? Was it a timeout on the field? Not sure if it was a Callahan goal. I have to admit, I looked up for just a second, and I didn't see what happened, and we're waiting to hear the ruling on the field. Could have been the timeout was called just in time, and that looks like it's exactly what happened. We finally figured it out. Now, I will have to consult our referees as to whether or not a stall in the end zone would result in a Callahan or if the disc would be on the goal line. And we see Anson Repperman gathering the team in, and the Thunderbirds need some sort of a shot in the arm. They did not expect, after that turnover, to lose 35 yards and find themselves in the back of the end zone. They've got the offensive team on the field. They're in a tight spot over there on the away sideline. And we'll see who goes to pick it up, but my guess is it'll be Patrick Earls. And on the lefty sideline, don't be too surprised if he has a deep streaking target. That could be Tyler DiGirolamo, could be Ethan Beardsley. Looks like Patrick's in the stack. Max Thorne is wide. No, Patrick has the disc. It's Mark Fedorenko in the back of the stack. He starts an in-cut and then goes away. And as I thought, a little bit, not quite enough on it. And Fedorenko makes a nice bid for it, but it gets it out of the back of the end zone. And that almost was a punt. Carpenter manages to secure a disc that was a little bit shaky. And now this one, a floater down the sideline and pulled out of the air. Thinking that might be Pat Earls too. Not quite sure. Nah, this one finds his hand in Jonathan Mast's hands. Sent to the middle of the field. Fedorenko pulls it in. He's flanked by Thorne. Thunderbirds having trouble moving it downfield, as it's mostly just a matter of the AlleyCats playing tremendous man-to-man defense. And we got another one yanked. Tyler DiGirolamo running underneath it. And will he have the... No, he does not get into the end zone. He's on the one. Goes back, taps it to the ground, doesn't have to do that. Sends it up for Fedorenko, and he can't quite get his hands on it. We don't know whether Carpenter, who made a desperate bid to make a block there and stayed with him all the way, was able to get a hand on it. But Fedorenko was not able to put the squeeze on the disc in the end zone, and he now limps toward the sideline. He's obviously uncomfortable. He doesn't look seriously injured, but he was unable to bring the disc into his possession. And the score remains 18-18 with 2 minutes left in this quarter. It's clearly going to be AlleyCats possession. as Fedorenko slowly makes his way to the sidelines where he'll be seen by UPMC sports medicine trainer Anthony Mobile. And now he's jogging, he looks comfortable. But I'm sure he's not happy about what just happened. And the Thunderbirds, after completing almost 80 yards there of puck, failed to cover the last two. They're off in the hardest. Deep in the stack are Hamilton and Gross. A fella working deep against Beardsley. Disc is in Carpenter's hands. Plew has it now, masked on the mark. Coming in is Gross, and Repperman peels off. And then Hamilton kind of gets lost a little bit, but it's too far down there to be of any worry. Levi Jacobs has the disc in his hands. Cocks it to throw a couple times. Throws one that gets beyond the kick block of Tyler. But this one will not get beyond Jonathan Mast. It falls short. Now it's in Repperman's hands. What's Repperman going to do with it? He's got his handlers sort of bunched up. Now they spread out. Mast has it, and he's got Repperman moving across the field. Laskar makes a nice bid for it, lays out up and forward, but Anson pulls it out of the air just in time. And now it's sent up to Max Thorne, who catches it over his shoulder, wide receiver style, and throws to Patrick Earls. A high release to regain the lead for the Thunderbirds. 19-18. They looked a little bit shaky after Jonathan Mast's block on an errant throw, but they pulled it together. Some nice handling there by Mast and by Thorne. And now they're ahead, 18-19, with 1:23 left in the third quarter. So we couldn't have asked for a much better night for a game, and we couldn't have asked for a much better game at this point. It can't be any closer than this without being tied, and the AlleyCats have a chance to do that right now. Let's see who they're going to bring out to try to get the job done. Not a tall lineup, but a very experienced and quick one. Carey, Plew, Brock, Gross. Looks like Zebarth is out there. A double team on the sidelines is broken, and Maxstat and Hammonds move in, but then Hammonds goes to get Ames as Maxstat stays on Carey. Carey having a little trouble with that long reach of Maxstat. He scoots into the middle of the field, and the AlleyCats regroup. Running downfield is Ames, Hammonds with him. Disc on the far side. Gross comes in, catches it in front of Heffron. This one's sent pretty far back. Plew looks to swing it back across the field, and we've got a receiver breaking deep. And it is a beautiful throw. And Gross pulls it in for yet another goal. And that's Keenan Plew and Rick Gross knowing each other really, really well. Gross had been back there handling, and it looks to me like he maybe lulled his defender into a sense of complacency, expecting him to maybe turn around and make another one of those quick and swirly handler cuts, and he just took off downfield. And Gross has a motor. When he takes off, it's not easy to stay with him. I'm trying to see who it was with him. Looks like Maxstat. He's slapping his hands. No, it's not Maxstat. I apologize for that. Instead, that's Heffron. And he smacks his hands together in frustration. He's feeling frustrated that he let Gross get away from him, but really, it took an absolutely perfect throw from Plew, and that's exactly what was delivered. So, with the score tied at 19-19, the Thunderbirds under pressure to stay on serve. So far, this lineup has been pretty equal to that pressure. And we got Tyler DiGirolamo going deep against John Jones. Referee backing up, and Tyler goes up and has an opportunity or two to catch it. Don't know for sure whether or not his hand got there first, but John Jones's hand was also there, and Tyler is going back making his case to the officials, but he's going to have to play defense because they're not going to be convinced. Sandwiching in the stack are Ethan Beardsley and Tyler DiGirolamo, and Jones catches up with it, makes a left-handed stab, and now they're off to the races up the line. Jacobs on the far sideline sends up a bender into the middle. Will Fridella be able to get it? He doesn't. And number 91 for the AlleyCats, Josh Duncan, told just before the game that he was going to play because of injuries to Nick Hutton and Sam Sohn, comes down under pressure with a one-handed stab in the end zone, and the AlleyCats have re-seized the lead. It is 20-19 with 5 seconds left, and And the Thunderbirds in a position where if they don't score here, the AlleyCats will enter the fourth quarter, the first team to get to 20, and with a 1-goal lead, making the Thunderbirds work awfully hard in their second home game of the year and their second game of the year to enter what will be a long road trip, and we'll tell you about that in just a moment, but a very long road trip with a loss. You don't want to do that. And so Max Thorne gets underneath a terrific pull, sends one out to Xavier Maxtat, and he's still not at the goal line, and then he throws up a huge backhand, and absorbing the pressure of that backhand is the face of Spencer Loskar. So doing the patented face block and maybe catching some of Maxtat's follow through, which is not a foul, taking one for the team for sure. Loskar squelches that bid to throw it deep, and we see the Thunderbirds assemble in front of us around Coach Hogan as he tries to solve the puzzle of these Indianapolis AlleyCats, who, as Coach Lionetti said, are scrappy and won't give an inch and continue to lure the Thunderbirds into some deep shots, which have not worked out. And you've seen exactly what Dave Lionetti said was going to happen. It's very difficult to resist Tyler DiGirolamo when he's going deep. On the other hand, a couple of those deep throws have fallen incomplete, and probably would have been better for the Thunderbirds to use those outstanding handlers to continue to work the disc up the field. As it is, they've allowed Klue and Brock to counterpunch, and they have done so and done so effectively. So the Thunderbirds find themselves on the wrong end of a 20-19 score, down by 1, as they head into the decisive final quarter. I mentioned to you that your Thunderbirds were going to be on the road for a little while, and in fact, I do not believe that they will be home for the entire month of May. And we're going to have a look at their schedule as soon as we can pull it up. We're going to have Elliot Diamond, who's got the only internet connection here in Couple Stadium, where, not to be ungrateful to our hosts, but they won't even give us the Wi-Fi password. But looking at the schedule, we've got some exciting stuff on tap for you. Coming up next week on May 6th at 8 o'clock is one of those cross-division, cross-coast rivalry games. Really remarkable what the AUDL is doing this year. They're matching up. Teams have played in their division until the playoffs up until now, but next week is part of this series. The Thunderbirds will visit the Seattle Cascades. It'll be on at 8 o'clock on the 6th. And we've got a bunch of other games on that slate, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. But in the meantime, we've got action on the field, and Max Thorne catches one from Jonathan Mast. He's in the middle, sends it out to Tad Whistle. Whistle throws another one of those big reach backhands to Patrick Earls. He is on his left-hand sideline, which is what he likes, and he has to do a straight dump back to Whistle, who sends one right up to Trucks. Trucks marked very closely over there. And then another one that seems to just come from out of sight. We couldn't see any part of Tad but his hand. We can see this, though, and that is, once again, a disc well thrown by Patrick Earls, bouncing off of the hand of Tyler DiGirolamo, and now, with a chance to send it right back, Travis Carpenter unleashes a forehand to Kasper Zicki. Wally Kasper Zicki was open. It was one of those times you've seen it happen before, and we see Tyler doff the hat, and he's still running on the sidelines. Max Thorne gets it, and it was just, he was too open deep, and so Carpenter had to crank one, but Kasper Zicki couldn't catch up to it. And sometimes you just can't load up that throw quickly enough. John Mass working in the middle of the field, being chased by Ringwood, and Tad Whistle was open for an in cut, but instead it goes back to Patrick Earls, who then throws it to Tad. Tad ignores that away cut for now, laces one up to Mast, who catches one. It was beautifully placed for him. He just walked to it. Then cutting towards the sideline was Ty. Tad's deep, and this one sent out into the middle of nowhere, but fortunately Max Thorne was there, and I have to think that he knew what he wanted. Now Patrick Earls catches it again on that lefty sideline. He's got the Birdman going deep, and Ethan with a much-needed high-pressure grab. He was running out of room, and with a defender closing on him quickly, And I think that might be Kasper Zicke the younger. Will, he was running out of time. He certainly wasn't running out of airspace because Ethan starts way up there. And he climbed the ladder and he pulled that one down. He got his feet in bounds. And the Thunderbirds really needed that one. They did not want to give up another goal and give up a break to the AlleyCats. And it's 20-20 with 10.5 minutes left. And you got to stay with us, because this one is shaping up to be a lot like the one that happened out on the West Coast in San Jose last night when the FlameThrowers notched a victory against the Spiders. I'm going to ask Elliot to pull that schedule up again after the next point. And as this pull settles down in the hands of Keenan Plew, has to track it back about 5-10 yards deep. Carpenter in the long sleeves gets it. And Brock puts one up very nicely. I'm sorry. It's Ames who threw the first one. Carpenter running underneath it, and then he sends one out into space to Gross, and that was just too easy. That was just too easy. So I said we would be on the road for a while, and we will. After that game out in Seattle, the Thunderbirds are going to get a week off. They're going to come back in Madison at Breese Stevens Stadium, site of last year's championship weekend, and the home of the King of the Hill in the Midwest Division, the Madison Radicals, perennial champions. Thunderbirds have beaten them once in a couple of years, and as I said, they're the puzzle that they're trying to solve. They'll then go to Motor City on the 27th at 7 p.m. to face the Detroit Mechanix, new and improved. They'll have a rematch with the Wildfire, the team that they beat last week here, 30-22, and they'll be playing in their yard on June 3rd at 8 o'clock, and in the second half of a doubleheader weekend on Sunday at 7 o'clock, so they'll have a lot of time to chill out there in Indy. Then they're going to play the AlleyCats, the same AlleyCats, in Indianapolis on June 4th. So they will be back, and we'll give you their next home date, and that's going to be against the Radicals here at home on the 17th. And that's going to be an ulti-world game. Fedorenko with a scuba into the middle of the field, which finds Beardsley before anybody else can get to it. It was a little bit of a race, and directing traffic, Earls throws up a lefty laser to the truck. Scott trucks Trimble, who pulls it down, and the Thunderbirds knot it back up. So just like the AlleyCats did it, easy, the Thunderbirds come back, and they notch a quick score. It's 21-21, 9:52. And this is the fourth quarter, and the game couldn't be tighter. The pull floating and arcing down. They seem to be getting longer as the night goes on. Maybe the air thins out, maybe the wind dies down. Plew has the disc, and he loads up a huck. This one looks like it's got too much gas, and it's just going to be which Thunderbird's going to get it. And fortunately, after it's smacked out of the air by Heffron, who was joined back there with Refferman, I don't know if Anson enjoyed having a block stolen from him, if that's what happened. It falls harmlessly out of bounds, but that one got a little bit of a lift from the block. Max Thorne being marked by Travis Carpenter, looking and decides to send it into the middle of the field, where Fridella pulls it down and sends it right back to Max and tries a strike cut, but it's contained. Max laces one into the middle to Repperman. Repperman looking, being marked by Gross, and then he's joined by Carpenter, by Carey, but he passes out of it to Maxstat. Maxstat sends an easy one up to Fridella, who juggles it a little bit and then dishes it off to Max. Max has an in-cut, but that in-cut is covered, and now Diamichis turns around. Jake Fella trying to find him. The disc is up in the air, and it floats a little bit, and unfortunately it popped up just as John Diamichis made his jump. And that was unfortunate. I understood why Max threw it, but he did not count on the disc being held up. We have a travel, which is going to send Fella, they call them specs because of those specs, back into the end zone about 10 yards. So unfortunate for the Thunderbirds. What happened was that Fella had done a great job shutting down Diesel's in-cut, and then Diesel turned around, and I don't know if he knew that Max was going to throw it, but Max saw he had distance, so he threw it up in the air. Now Travis Carpenter sends it up to Gross, who squeezes it in a tight keyhole there, and then he sends it out, and giving chase is Heffron, but Brock is, and he makes a nice bid, lands on that hip. If that were my hip, I would be on my way to Presbyterian Hospital right now for a replacement. but it looks like all that needs to be replaced for young Heffron is his hat, which fell out as he gave chase. But Brock in position to pull it in without any trouble. And a really nice exchange between, I think, Carpenter and Croce earlier in the point, where the handlers worked it through those little windows. People who watch these games and watch them a lot and know how the game is played understand that those little ones are sometimes harder to throw than the big ones. There's 8:15 left. AlleyCats maintaining that one-goal cushion as they stay on serve, and Casper Zicki launches a roller, which I think, again, unless the goal here is to be able to set up your defense, and Ringwood settling in, and they're in that, looks like they're in that at least zone on the handlers again. I think it's just a loose man on the handlers. Max Thorne is open, sends it back to Whistle, has room to throw. Tad looking, steps out and whips off that forehand to Fedorenko. It amazes me every time I see it. Mark throws a more conventional forehand to the Birdman, and you know he likes to send it right back. Tad finds finds Fedorenko on the sideline. He's being chased by Casper Zicki. Laskar over pursues a little bit. Mast was there, and that was the wrong pass, I got to say. Rather than Earls, that should have been gone back to Mast, who had done a nifty little move to get open to the fore side. Instead, it's now in the hands of Laskar. Sends it out to John Jones, and let's see if the defensive lineup can convert. And John Jones sends it out there, and Levi Jacobs lays out just beyond his left hand. That was not the throw he wanted to make. Casper Zicki, the elder, establishes a mark. It's on that forehand sideline, but instead he launches a backhand. I don't think there's any chance that the Birdman is going to pull this one down. And once again, we see a disc getting a little extra altitude, but one or both of the receivers down on the ground and wanting to protect this opportunity for a break. We have a call of timeout from the Indianapolis AlleyCats. Eric Leonard recognizes an opportunity when he sees one. So personnel will change. A little update on the stats at the third quarter. Still leading the pack with 8 goals, but truth be told, it could have been more if the hands had just been a little bit surer tonight, is Tyler DiGirolamo. And then for assists, we've got 6 of them for Max Thorne. And blocks, looks like Repperman with 3. Tyler's still playing great ultimate out there, and I know he's not going to be happy with the drops that he's had. But one thing to bear in mind is that Tyler is still rehabbing a knee. He's not at 100%. Last week when I talked to Tad Whistle, asked him to assess where he thought Tyler was, he said 94% and climbing. But only Tyler knows for sure how he feels. And getting back to it, it's a process. Tyler's just started to run hard in practice recently to go all out. And those legs, as every ultimate player knows, affect the hands. Travis Carpenter, we got a little bit of a side stack, or sort of a T-stack, leading into the horizontal. And now it's Carpenter. Disc floats a little bit, but it is brought in by Ames on that far sideline. Plew working behind, but he doesn't need him. Still trapped on the sideline by Isaac Smith, his Carpenter. And it looks like there's a little bit of contact on the mark. And so they're going to march it 10 yards closer to the goal line. And with Isaac Smith on the mark, Ames shoots up the line, being followed by Tyler. And Plew intercepts that one. Ames catches it in the middle on a nice bender from Plew, and then he shoots it out where it's tracked down by Schwartz. Danger Schwartz throws one to Brock, and suddenly the AlleyCats are up by 2, and the Thunderbirds are feeling the heat. This is no longer about staying even. It's no longer about being steady and holding on to possession. It's now about making something happen. The Thunderbirds need to turn the disc over, and then they need to take advantage of that turnover. And they've got the personnel to do it. Pat Hammonds, Diesel Diamichis, Anson Repperman, one of the best defensive players in the AUDL. Jordan Robars, who's played great defense for them tonight. All of these guys are capable of putting the kind of pressure on the AlleyCats to make them make a mistake, but when they make those mistakes have to end up in the hands of a Thunderbird in the end zone. So far, that hasn't happened, and to be honest with you, the AlleyCats don't look tired. Finally, a quality roller pull crosses the sideline at the 30. Rushing up to put it in play is Mast in the hands of Earls. We've got that loose line of defenders across the middle, something of his own. Max Thorne has it. Thunderbirds looking like they're ready to break out. Max pulls it back. Disc is laced up to Robarge. He looks, decides not to throw it to Earls. Instead, Tad Whistle gets it. Tad throws, he throws that alley-oop push pass. Not as high as he throws it in pickup, but he's not afraid to throw those things. And then a nice throw. Looks like that came from John Mash and found Ethan Beardsley in the end zone. And a sigh of relief goes up from the Thunderbirds, but they still have work to do. Ferdella, Diamichis, Maxstat, Heffron, DiGirolamo coming in to play defense. Repperman, and finally Jesse Evans. He's got a fan right here in the booth next to me. Jesse Evans is a staple of pickup here in Pittsburgh. Loves the pickup scene. And a lot of these Thunderbirds involved in the Pittsburgh Ultimate scene, as I mentioned before. Playing in the rec leagues, working with young people. They've really become part of the community. But one of the problems we're looking to solve is how to get some of the folks who are listening here to head out to the stadium and be part of this great atmosphere. And floating down through that atmosphere is a pull that goes the full length of the field and falls into Keenan Plu's hands. Carpenter has it, slings it into the middle, finds Fella. Fella, an in-cutting Brock ahead of a big bid. This one is sent up to Schwartz, who awkwardly goes down and gets it. Jesse Evans on the mark. Not a lot of folks downfield right now. Now it's Brock, and we've got a deep throw maybe coming, but no, Carpenter thinks the better of it, and they work carefully. He finds Brock, who has been getting open over the middle all night, and a little bit of an overcommitment over there, I think, on defense, and nothing the Thunderbirds can do. As the AlleyCats up 24-22. Not a lot of losses in this stadium for the Thunderbirds in their history. But if they can't do something in the next 5 minutes and 21 seconds, they're going to add one in that column. And with the road trip coming up, it's going to take up a whole month, 5 games. It really would be nice to come out of here with a win. But as I said in the stand-up before the telecast began, some teams seem to get under the skin of other teams. Pittsburgh hasn't had particular trouble with Minnesota. Minnesota stymies Indianapolis every time they play. And when the AlleyCats come to town, there's nothing that is certain except for a really good game. Passing out of the double team with a Scuba. Tad Whistle on the receiving end of a Scuba for a change. Jonathan Mast and Patrick Earls in the handling lineup, cutting downfield are Beardsley, Robarge, Max Thorne doing some cutting, and Fedorenko. Looks like Beardsley's going to get this one. He secures it, shuffles it back to his handler. And the Thunderbirds reload. It's a break to Mast. Mast in a position to do some damage, and he throws to Fedorenko cutting up the line. Fedorenko unleashes a huck. This one looks like it's going to find its target. And what a grab! Beautiful shot by Fedorenko, and we've talked about that in our previous broadcast. Mark Fedorenko, a guy who started out here, Cincinnati, his first pro destination, and then he became a Thunderbird, and a guy who had mainly been out there as a defender and a possession receiver, but now he's the captain. He does a nice up-the-line cut, and then he pulls out that throw, sends it into the end zone, where it is pulled down by Ethan Beardsley. I'm stumbling a little bit because as the night goes on and it gets darker, it is harder to see. Pull settles down. Clue finds it, catches it, hits Ames. Travis Carpenter working downfield against Diamichis. Very deep is Repperman with Gross, always dangerous. Gelati running downfield with Carpenter. A sharp throw. I'm sorry, finds Carpenter. I must be looking at Ames downfield. Fell on the sideline. Robarch denying the dump. And this one loses a lot of yards, but repositions the disc to Plew. Gelati closes. Disc is snapped out to Ames. And then there's a pile up on the sideline and a call made, and it looks like Rick Gross once again is in discomfort. Both he and Repperman crashed together. Repperman looks like he's a little dinged up too. And he goes over to check on Gross, and Gross is grabbing his hand there. And it's the second time that he's needed medical attention. He stays on the Thunderbirds sideline, so the trainer, Anthony Mobile, can talk to him. Tad Whistle had some words for Gross and the trainer. Gets a big round of applause, and Repperman gets called for a foul on that one. Tyler DiGirolamo settles in on Levi Jacobs, who comes in to pick up the disc from Rick Gross. He throws a couple of hard fakes, and then Carpenter shuffles, shakes, and bakes, gets up the line of Demikas, and he throws up a blade, and it is caught. Wow. A missed opportunity there. A rare, impulsive throw, I think, on the part of Travis Carpenter. Throws up a blade, and it looks like Fella just manages to gather it in. And it sounds like the fans aren't quite so sure about it. Looks like maybe it wiggled through, but Brian Heim was there, says it's a goal, and that goal makes it 25-23. And time is getting short. 3:53 left in the broadcast. And 3:53 left in the game. Pull is a rifle. It's going to get down there with the Thunderbirds with the chance to gain a little bit of yardage, and Max Thorne backs it up to the 30. They're in a vertical stack, and it pops out to Patrick Earls. He's on his backhand sidelines, but we have a pick call. Brian Heim calls a pick, and the Thunderbirds will give back some of that yardage that they were able to gain by virtue of that low and short pull. John Jones settles in on the mark, and then working very hard is Mark Fedorenko, but he is shadowed very closely by Will Kasperzicki, and Patrick Earls just decides, when in doubt, huck. And when Max Thorne is on the other end of it, that's not a bad idea, and I think it's a strip, and Brian Heim agrees. It doesn't look like the defender does, but that is immaterial. It will be put in play in the middle of the field. Max Thorne goes up, and, you know, interesting story after this, but they're in that vertical stack, and you had to figure it was going to be a break right away. It is. Ends up in the hands of the, is that the Condor? Who caught that one? Yep, Fedorenko. Condor. He told us that Fejko is a name that he got from his friend Tad Whistle, but when his buddies at Dayton heard it, they said, no, your name is the Condor. That's, I guess, what they used to call him. And I asked Fedorenko how he got the name, and he said, well, my friends will tell you a story. It won't be G-rated, and it won't be true either. So we await news on the derivation of the nickname Condor. Meanwhile, though, it's 24-25, and this is a big defensive play. 3 minutes left, and a rifle of a pull. I believe DiGirolamo put that one up, and unlike the pull from the AlleyCats, this one allows the Thunderbirds to defend the first pass. That first pass is a hammer from Plew to Carey. Back in the end zone, Ferdella makes a grab, but Plew, always cool as can be, manages to pull it in, throw it up to Fella, and then catch it going up the line. Carey's got the disc, leaning to the forehand side, and Tyler's on the mark, and Travis Carpenter is unable to bring it in. Tyler is picked up by Maxstat, and Maxstat sends a forehand out to Tyler, and this game is tied at 25 with 2:30. Tyler DiGirolamo on defense to make something happen, and boy, did he ever. He started it off with a pull that gave the defense the opportunity to settle down, and defend the first few throws. Flu responded. They moved the disc, but the Thunderbirds defense forced them backwards, and finally then DiGirolamo, defending Travis Carpenter in a direct dump right behind the thrower, was able to make that 7 seconds into a high-pressure situation that resulted in a throw that Carpenter simply couldn't catch up to. Maxstat picks it up, and as David Batts reminds us, Xavier Maxstat can put it pretty much wherever you want to go, and the Thunderbirds picked the break. And it was Tyler DiGirolamo fittingly to finish it off, and here comes a pull from Fedorenko. This one does not go as far. It settles down in 10, said out of bounds, about 30 yards up, and you can bet that Mark is not happy about that one. Tyler's staying out there, and he is joined by Josh Zung, and downfield Max Thorne, and Thorne goes deep with Gross, and now turning around Fedorenko defending out here. The disc is over on the far sideline. Carpenter feels like he had contact. No, I'm sorry, that was Carpenter downfield, and it's another turnover. And the Thunderbirds with the opportunity to seize the lead on this break. Play is stopped. There is a timeout on the field, I believe. Oh no. Looks like Travis Carpenter hurt himself. He leaves the field, and that gives Max Thorne the opportunity to come on the field as a substitution. And if you're Dave Hogan and Dave Leonetti, can't feel too much better than seeing number 10 walking over there to pick that thing up. He is flanked by Robarge on the side. Topping the stack is Fedorenko, working deep as DiGirolamo coming in his bus. Jesse Evans is out there too. Disc is swung out to Fedorenko by Robarge. Robarge gets it back. Good to see Robarge in such a high-pressure situation. And he throws one out to Thorne. Will he catch up to it? No, I'm sorry. That wasn't Thorne. That was Ferdella. Ferdella double-teamed by Plu and Gross. And a timeout is called, and probably a good idea. And it looks to me like Kenny Ferdella might have just saved the Thunderbirds' opportunity to win this game. We've seen games like this before at Couple Stadium with a score almost identical. We remember the Chicago playoff game, which ended up with a Goose Helton toe on the back line of the east end zone. And the score was knotted up right up until then. The Thunderbirds hung on to win. Now the score is knotted up again. It is 25-25. The Thunderbirds have an offensive lineup out on the field, and if they can convert, they've been doing a pretty good job of converting this evening, they'll take a lead into the waning minutes of this game. Let's see who they put on the field. Well, you've got some guys who hardly have come off in the last few minutes. Max Thorne, Mark Fedorenko, Tyler DiGirolamo, both spending a lot of time on the field. Jonathan Mast, who the Thunderbirds feel very good about. Patrick Earls, the lefty laser, going to pick up the disc. Scott Trucks Trimble, lots of experience playing with this group of players. Anchoring the stack is Thorne. Right behind him is Whistle. Next in line, Fedorenko. Cutting from the back is Trimble before the disc is tapped in. There's movement, and they're waiting for the disc to be whistled in. It is. And then going deep is Fedorenko. Earls pulls it back, snaps one out to Mast. Trimble over to his left. He thinks better. Fella putting on hard defense, making Earls work hard. Here comes Max Thorne deep. This one's got a lot on it. Max is underneath it. A diving bid. Max gathers it in. He puts it on the goal line. And a little bit of despair from the defender. A little bit of despair from the defender. He put his head down. I didn't see who it was, but after Max caught it, you saw, I believe, it might have been Ames. I'm trying to get the number, but it doesn't matter. Max caught it. He put his head down. He thought it was in. It was not in. Max alertly puts the disc in play on the goal line. And he finds his captain, Mark Fedorenko, and the Thunderbirds, with 1 minute, 33 seconds, have seized the lead back in this game. 26-25. The folks who are out here tonight got every one of their $8 worth. It could be you. Why not come out here and be part of this The other disc sport is taking place tonight. Pittsburgh Penguins playing the Capitals in Washington. Nobody here cares. We've all got DVRs. The action right here is on the field, and it's in the hands of Ames. Ames looks to swing it out to Carpenter. Settling on the mark very quickly is Heffron. Carpenter looking, working hard against Fridella, put up in the middle of the field. Gelati underneath, goes up and gets it. It's Blue. Blue, still just 10 yards from his goal line, sends it back to Carpenter, working across the field as he often does. Fridella puts the mark on, working very hard on the defense against Carpenter is Heffron. And then coming in on the mark, oh, a huge bid and a big rip into the end zone. Fella underneath it, he's got company, goes up, it falls, incomplete. There's no Do we have a call? A call is made. Heim makes a call. He calls contact in the back of the end zone. And the disc is going to be put in play on the 1. He says that Beardsley bumped the receiver. Beardsley doesn't think so. Looked like the Thunderbirds had forced a turnover. Brian Heim was right on top of the play, and you saw contact. Now there's a vertical stack being set up in the end zone. Carpenter has the disc, being forced to the home sideline. Fridella sandwiching the stack at the front. A lot of dancing around. Maxstaff on the dump. Ames has it, shuffles it back, going up the line. Rolling with him is Heffron, and the disc goes up to Ames. And who knows whether it was the extra pressure from Heffron, who rolled with the strike cut, or if it was just Ames with too much time to think. There were so many cuts in those legs, but he couldn't hang on. Here comes a double team, 29 seconds left. Maxstat sends it into the middle. Fridella has it. He doesn't have a lot of cuts, but he got Maxstat. He sends it back to him. Maxstat jacks it, and all alone underneath is the air traffic controller, trying to milk it. 14 seconds left. The stall count being put on. He's got 7 seconds. It's open all the way over here is Beardsley. It ends up in his hands. He barely has to throw this one, but he throws a scoober. Repperman pulls it down, and folks, it's all over. Triple zeros on the clock. 26, 25. The Thunderbirds in a fourth quarter comeback. They needed a break. They needed another. They needed to come up with big plays, and they needed just a little help from number 78 in the Indianapolis AlleyCats. It hurts to call his name in that context because Michael Ames is a great guy and a really fine ultimate player. He's hurt the Thunderbirds before, and in this case, Ames taketh away, and he was unable to put the clap on that catch. We've all done it. We've all been there. But in that moment, he needed to make the grab to send this game possibly into overtime and give the AlleyCats a chance to come away with an interdivisional victory. Unfortunately for him, and fortunately for the Thunderbirds, they couldn't. And then Maxstat out on the field, handling coolly, finally yanks that disc downfield, finds Repperman, and at that point, it was just running out the clock. This was a great game, beginning to end, top to bottom, both teams, the officiating crew, everybody right on top of their game, and you can see now the Indianapolis AlleyCats turn to the stands and they applaud the Thunderbirds fans who recognize a great effort when they see it. They know Indy will be back to play these Thunderbirds again, and they know that Indianapolis always gives the Thunderbirds a great game. You couldn't get much greater. The Thunderbirds array themselves on the sideline, and they applaud their fans. And you hear the fans giving them back the love, and it looks like they're going to, back when they were at Founders Field, they were able to go along the fence line and shake hands. As it is now, an exhausted and relieved Thunderbirds crew gets together, and as they take to the road, the month of May spent entirely on foreign turf, they go out there with a 2-0 record, starting the season late, but starting fast. And Coach Lionetti, Coach Hogan, GM Andrew Gardner have to be delighted with what they're seeing from this young lineup, because when they called on those guys to make plays, they made them. You can't overstate the impact of Kenny Fridella's defense tonight. You can't overstate the impact of Jordan Robarge's defense and his heady play on offense. You can't overstate the impact that somebody like young Jack Heffron has. And with young stars like that on the rise, combined with resurgent mainstays, fixtures in the Thunderbirds lineup. Max Thorne coming out, playing practically flawlessly and pulling in that monster grab right on the Indianapolis goal line, and then having the presence of mind to recognize that his defender sagged a little bit, just a little bit, and to shuffle that throw over to Fedorenko, who secured it with one hand. And so the Thunderbirds come away with a victory in one that will go down in their annals as one of these great, great games of couples. And when the Thunderbirds came back to couples, this is what they came back here for. A lot of new pieces in place, most of them manufactured right here in the Steel City. And it looks like this machine that they're putting together is one that can maybe take them for that long haul out to Madison to come back with a victory. We're looking forward to next week's game. Please tune in to the AUDL stream as they travel to Seattle further than they've ever been to play the Cascades. Please join the AUDL again when that Madison game comes up in a couple of weeks from now. Actually, I guess that'll be the 20th. Stick with us for the whole Thunderbird season. We'll be here. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to have an interview or alone up here in the booth. So for right now, I will say, on behalf of the AUDL, the Thunderbirds, on behalf of my partners and excellent staff of Steel Toe Productions, I'd like to say thank you for joining us. Please come back and be with us again. I don't know if we can promise you a barn burner like this every week, but boy, is it worth turning in. Final score, Thunderbirds 26, AlleyCats 25.